Hello, everybody. My name is Coach Charmaine Ashby, and I am your marriage coach. I work with couples, helping them, guiding them into better communication so that they could have better intimacy, more passion, resolve conflicts better, and also rebuild trust. So, today we're going to be talking about the marriage contract. Now, listen, I understand that everybody is not in a marriage. There are some people who don't even want to get married, but there are others who do want to get married. And of course, there are many people who are married, but they're struggling with the way they communicate. And so, the topic for discussion today is the contract for those who are married and for those who are seeking to get married. The contract. What are you talking about, Coach? What are you talking about, the contract? What contract? Well, marriage is a legally binding agreement. It is signed for by the participants. It is witnessed and it is officiated over. This is a legally binding agreement. This is the difference between whether or not you have the right to say what happens to your loved one. Maybe at times when someone is sick and there's no indication that they're going to get better and decisions have to be made. Um, this legally binding contract gives you the ability to make decisions on behalf of your loved one. This legally binding contract also allows you to um, uh, maybe receive their insurance or receive any other benefits that they may have in the event that they pass away. But that's just some of the benefits of being in this contractual agreement with another person. But let's talk about what you say or what you said or what you plan to say in front of witnesses as a binding agreement for your relationship. Many people say, till death do us part. Many people say, in sickness and in health. And there are many, 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 many agreements that is made with two people when they're getting ready to get married or when they're at the day of their marriage. And there are witnesses there. There are people who can attest to the things you said. And sometimes I'll ask my clients when they are in uh, disagreement and can't seem to get on the same page, I'll ask them, what did you agree to? Now, how many people who are married, how many people who want to be married actually consider the agreement? The words that you're saying in front of people and the words that you're saying in front of an officiant and what you're actually signing for. Words matter. Without our words, without our integrity behind that stands behind these words, what do we have? So if you promise to love me until death do us part and you don't, then that was a lie. Now, there are instances where the marriage contract has to be broken, as with any contract. So if you're now holding up your end of the agreement, then just by virtue of default, this contract may be broken. But for people who are simply wanting to break the contract because they've decided, you know what, I ain't feeling this no more. I know I signed the agreement. I know I said I was going to love you till death do us part. I know I said in sickness and in health. I know I said I would leave and cleave and all these other things that I made up my own words, my own vows that I said I was going to, adhere to. But you know what? I ain't feeling this no more. So some people break the contract just because they ain't feeling it no more. And so for those of you who want to get married, you really got to do your due diligence to ensure that you have picked the right person. Now, is there an opportunity for error? Always, always, even after you've done your due diligence, you could still end up with the wrong person, but at least you tried. Most people don't even try. Most people don't care about the relationships the other person was in before they met you. And how they handle those situations is a good indicator of how they're going to handle situations with you. Most people don't think about how they handle familial situations, like situations with their siblings, situations with their mother or maybe their father. And you don't consider those things when you're thinking about being in a relationship with someone, falling in love with someone, wanting to spend the rest of your life with someone as an indicator of things that may happen in the future. One of the things I have learned working in corporate America is that there are indicators that can give you an idea of an outcome. Now, are the indicators always perfect? Absolutely not. Are they always accurate? Absolutely not. But can they be a good indication of what the future holds? Oh, yes, they can. Well, I'll give you something very simple. If P1, and P1 means person one, P1 is person two. P1 can be either male or female. P2 can be the opposite, either male or female. It doesn't make a difference. But let's say P1 is not taking care of, let's say, her children, because we're always dumping on the guys, right? So let's say P1 is not taking care of his children, and you fall in love with P1. Do you think P1 not taking care of his children could be an indication of how he'll treat your children? There's a possibility. So it's not 100% sure thing, but it's a possibility. So it's something you want to think about, right? Say P1 doesn't have a good relationship with his mother. Say P1 doesn't have any good things to say, or let's say P2. Let's say P2 doesn't have anything good to say about his. Am I on P1? Let me go back to P1. Say P1 has nothing good to say about his mother. You know, have you looked into that relationship? Do you have any idea why the relationship has digressed to the place that it has? Is the way he treats his mother any indication about the way he'll treat you? Maybe, maybe not. But you got to look at it. And how well do you get to know each other before you dive into marriage? Now, listen, there are some anomalies where people meet and within a couple of months they're married and they stay married for 50 or 60 years. It's just not the norm. It is not the norm. The rest of us got to do our due diligence, okay? And that being said, you gotta do some investigative work. You know, if you're interested in the way that P1 or P2 handles their finances, you need to know about that before you fall in love. Because here's the thing, guys. Once your emotions get involved, you are done. It doesn't matter what anybody does. You are so emotionally charged and so emotionally overcome that you're probably going to marry this person, or at the very least move in with this person and start signing stuff with this person and buying houses with this person, buying cars with this person, and now you're all jacked up because you haven't even understood how this person handles finances. You know, how does this person handle stress? You know, these things are important. And the answers to these questions may or may not prevent you from getting married. But at least you're going into the situation with as much of an open mind and open heart as possible. All I'm suggesting is, instead of figuring out what to get your boyfriend for his for your 5 month anniversary, or your girlfriend for your 6 month anniversary, start doing some real work on communication, how you handle problems, how you're going to make decisions. Here's another thing that people don't think about, that I hear about after they've gotten married. I don't like all the time she's spending on social media. But you didn't have a discussion about that. She was spending a lot of time on social media before you got married, before you moved in together, before you made this decision. And it wasn't an issue because you thought it was going to change. You thought just because y'all hooked up, y'all got married, y'all started living together, or you didn't get married, you started living together, you thought it was going to change. It didn't change. It didn't change. And so now it's an issue because there was no discussion surrounding it. Text messaging. How are we handling problems? Is text messaging okay? Do we want to have deep conversations over text messaging? These are agreements that you can make before you get married. And these are also agreements that you can make after you get married. But it's a lot easier to do going in instead of after you're already out the gate and now you're trying to back out. So when you're dating, before you get emotionally involved, and here, let me bring up another point. What is your criteria for having sex with the person? Do you have any rules? Do you have any parameters? Now, some of you don't. Listen, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to judge you. I have my own personal feelings about it, but it's not shared by the world. So that's okay. But some people don't have any parameters. They like the person and they decide, okay, boom, let's make love. Let's have sex. Let's do the thing. And some people are just in it for the physical, and some people think this is going to lead to the long term. So I'm really talking about people who are more interested in long-term relationships than people who are, fly-by-nights, right? Or booty calls, or what have you. So for you who are interested in long-term commitments and relationships, what is your criteria for having sex with someone else? How many people do you have to have sex with before you start setting some rules and boundaries about how you're going to live your life? What is your criteria after you have formed a relationship and a communion? A communion, I think that's what I'm thinking of, with someone else. What is your criteria if you decide to move in together? Most people don't have any. What is your criteria when you decide, if you decide to get married? What's your criteria? And then here's another thing. I ask my couples this. There's always like a deer caught in the headlight look. I'll say, what's your definition of love? This is what I get. And then I hear a lot of things that don't make sense. Because love, I said, and here's another question I ask. If love was a person, what would love do? No one knows. So, listen, the marriage commitment is not to be entered into lightly, the ministers will say. The marriage commitment is a commitment I think should be entered in by adults. The marriage commitment is not for children. The marriage commitment is a very serious situation because what you're getting ready to do is combine your life with someone else. And I'm going to tell you something. It is going to be it's going to cost you a lot of money if you want to break that agreement. It's going to cost you a lot of time. It's going to cost you a lot of effort. It's going to cost you a lot of energy. Even if you are living with someone, it's going to cost you a lot of energy, a lot of time to break that agreement because you put your life together with someone else. So, and then here's the thing, which is what I started talking about in the beginning, which is the contract. People are not concerned about what they have said. I mean, there is no guarantee that everybody's going to be healthy. There's no guarantee that everybody's going to stay in their right mind. There's no guarantee that some horrible tragedy is not going to befall you. What will you do in those situations? What will you do? What will you do? How many children does each person want? How many children does each person already have? What's the relationship like with those children? What's going to be the relationship with you and those children? What's the relationship with the parents and those children? Things that nobody thinks about. Things nobody thinks about until after the fact. So I started off this conversation by talking about the marriage contract, and um, I just want you to examine what you said. Start thinking about your marriage day as not just a big party where everybody had a good time, but start thinking about it as a day that I entered into a very serious contract, a very serious agreement. And this is what I said. And you know what? I also asked my couples, I said, well, if you don't remember what you said, what about your friends? You think they know what you said? Because they were witnesses. And I bet you if you poll some of them, one of those friends is going to be able to tell you exactly what you agreed to. It might also be a good idea, because this is a marriage agreement, it's a contract, to write it down. Well, and it usually is. So let's say get a copy of the vows. Get a copy of the vows from the officiant, from the minister, from the rabbi, from the imam, whoever. Get a copy of the vows so that you can remind yourself what you as an adult signed up for. And then we can start working from there. We can start communicating. But I didn't know. I didn't know he was like that. I didn't know she was like that. Yeah, well, that's how it is sometimes. But if you're willing to do the work to get back on track, if you're willing to do the work to go back to or define for yourselves what loving someone means or honoring someone means and respecting someone, if you're willing to do that work and find out those things, then you can turn your marriage around. Marriage is not easy. It's worth it, but it's not easy. It's nice to have a partner. It's nice to have somebody that loves you and takes care of you, and you love and you take care of, and you got their back, and they got your back. It's a wonderful feeling. But it takes work. And a lot of us don't really want to do that work, because a lot of that work is introspection. Introspection. Looking at how I'm showing up in the relationship. Even if it is looking at whether or not I've set boundaries. Boundaries are important for everyone, because boundaries lets everybody know, okay, this is where I stop, or this is where I start, but this is the line, and this is what I'm not comfortable with. You don't want to get to a place in your marriage where you can't talk to each other, because it really opens up the door for you to be able to talk to someone else. And that's how a lot of third-party relationships start. Because I don't have the courage to confront. I don't want to hear the nagging, some people may say, or I don't want to be ignored, some people may say. So I'll just talk to somebody who wants to listen. Tell me how that worked out for you. But listen, today's conversation was about the contract. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like, subscribe, and share this video. And I'll be coming back, I don't know, with some more very, very interesting conversation. I would love to hear your comments too. And I would love to hear what you think about your contract, the contract that you made. And I would love to hear what you think about making contracts in general. Is this something that you're thinking about doing? And if you're not going to make a contract with somebody else, but you do want to be in a relationship with someone, what's your plan? What's your plan? So take care. I'd love to hear your comments, and see you in the next video.